Hello, fellow humans. It is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. It's Tuesday spelled Toosday, because for many, many years now, I have found Tuesdays to just be a little too much. And I thought about it when I first came up with the spelling, a way of explaining why it could be that Tuesdays were just always such a pile. And that's because Monday is Monday and you're groggy getting into the week. And Tuesday is kind of this forgotten day. And it's the steep incline to the hump of the week. The hump day, Wednesday. And I also decided that, like I said, Monday had its thing, Wednesday was hump day, Thursday became throwback Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are just the weekend, right? So Tuesday was the unsung day of the week. I think it just wanted some attention. Why it picked at me so much. Anyway, so Tuesdays are always too much, and today is no exception. And I cannot shut my mouth anymore. I will not just shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up is what my cup says, by the way. I babble. Anybody who has watched any of my videos knows that I am trying to sort out all of the stuff that has crammed up in my head watching us roll downhill into literally the destruction of humanity. We are destroying ourselves. And I can't remain silent about it anymore. When I was seeing a psychiatrist, last psychiatrist that diagnosed me and sort of watched me find my own treatment, actually admitted to me that there's no way he could provide me with the kind of treatment that I found myself, to dig myself far enough out of the hole that I didn't feel the need to go to a hospital. He could not argue any of my logic on any of my treatments. I've been doing this my whole life. Finding ways to mitigate the fact that I have a perspective that just doesn't seem to jive with the rest of the world, I get everything from people telling me that I just think I'm misinterpreted because they know what I'm thinking. They know what I'm saying. No, they know what I'm saying from their perspective. They're not coming around and trying to see where I'm coming from with it. Part of the human condition. So this morning, I was reflecting on actually a couple of things that I've seen in the past few days, and I'm going to say a lot of things that are probably going to make a lot of people knee-jerk think badly of me, but the fact of the matter is my psychiatrist said to me, I think on our second visit, he hit the nail on the head. Dorothy, you've been living your life against your own values, and I had, very much so. I abandoned my real value system in my teens because I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to offend my friends who I understand that the worldview had already started shifting away from life to lifestyles. That happened in my lifetime. The final frontier of absolute consumer control for lifestyle marketing was politics, and it was a very, very friendly takeover in the 80s with Reagan and Thatcher's campaigns. They were the first political campaigns to adopt lifestyle marketing and completely target us as individuals and completely divide and rule us. And back in the 80s, when the decriminalization and legalization of abortion was happening, I picketed Morgenthaler's clinic. To me, it didn't make sense. The issues of sexual assault and ectopic pregnancies that was a non-issue, right? Like, we're talking about the health and well-being. By bringing these things into clinics and allowing longer and longer periods of time into gestation for women to have the time to make the tough decision that they've been gaslighted into making, basically. Ever since I was going to start this with, actually, I started my day making a tweet and a Facebook post. This is where I was going to start. My biggest block is the fear of being misinterpreted and unintentionally causing harm. Any way you look at it, mine is a cautionary tale. The worldview is already so sideways. Every good we try to do becomes a crusade. Think about that, people. All ye who damn yet learn nothing from the example of, say, the Catholic Church. End transmission. So yeah, I wake up in the morning and I reflect on things. And this is all in mind because the other day I came across criticisms of the trad moms now. And I accept that I live in a culture that has abandoned life for lifestyles, traded a belief in God for a belief in the science, okay? Not science, not the scientific method, what the powers that be say is true. Not unlike, the Catholic Church telling Galileo he was wrong. The things that are happening right now, rewind. In the mid-'80s, when Canada legalized free clinic abortions, when it became not about actual health and it became about lifestyle choices, I picketed Morgenthalers and Scott's clinics in Toronto. I left the pro-life movement because I understood that arguing this on moral grounds was not going to work already in our society. We gave up on morals and ethics. That is what makes a coherent society, is a shared value system. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the same belief system. It doesn't have to be praying to the same God. It doesn't have to necessarily even be following the same rule book. But we're all playing the same game. It's like different types of poker. Slightly different rules, but the basics, the fundamentals. We all have a right to life. Life. We are all in this together. And none of us have any right to actually judge one another. What we need to do is understand and accept that we are flawed beings that can get very, very misdirected if only churning from our own source and not shared perspectives. The advent of lifestyle marketing taking over everything, every aspect, our entire lives. Every aspect of our life has been commodified now. One of my deepest pains is the fact that I can only get the kind of emotional support that I need to get well from a professional. It's not that there aren't people out there that love me and want to be able to provide that for me. But I'm kind of in this catch-22 of things. Anyway, that's my story. Back to the reasons why. Life is life. We've completely lost. And I guess all of this is very much rooted in my early experiences as a child who was sexually abused. A child that became a sexual being way too early in life. And it affected and has affected my entire life. And what we're doing right now, the cover-ups, okay, the stuff that isn't being reported by mainstream media, that people keep telling me, I am the farthest thing in the world from a right-wing conservative. It's why I had to leave the pro-life movement. I stopped participating because there are so many other really good secular arguments against free access to abortion, mostly on a social level. We have lost our respect for life. Back then, it was like, yes, I recognized back then the slippery slope to euthanasia. Look at where we are today. In the first 5 years, and it's been that long, guys, of euthanasia in the country of Canada, between 2016 and 2021, 32,264 Canadians were put down by our government. And it is a fact. And you can look up this story. It's just one. It's one that managed to get reported. And you can bet, just like when, they uncovered all of the sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, that was covered up and covered up and covered up and covered up. And they're not covering this stuff up very well. They're just not reporting the rapes and the child exploitation. They're covering it up. Okay. Excusing this guy in Oakville, I'm sorry, but if he was a woman, I'm not saying tell him not to wear the breasts, but dress appropriately. Okay? I marched around the city of Toronto wearing t-shirts with no bras, and I'm not gonna bother because I'm so sick of the way that we have literally, women, we turned ourselves into objects. Everybody's out there talking about how they're offended about things and appropriation. I don't see the difference between minstrels and drag queens. And if you go back and you look at the history of drag queens and how they originated, drag queens were gay men who dressed up as caricatures of women in a comedic, overtly sexual, caricature, stereotype. What the trans movement has become is not somebody, it's ceased to become about people who literally are experiencing mental distress because they feel like they shouldn't have body parts that they have, or they should have body parts that they don't. And they've taken it to the adoption of sexual stereotypes, sexualized stereotypes. And truly trans people who experience gender dysphoria, the distress of being in the wrong, feeling like they're in the wrong body, not because of societal stereotypes, but because of a disconnection between their mental being and their physical being. There is a big difference. I, as a biological female, as a woman, and as a mother, have quietly sat back understanding other people's offense while they sit there and shit all over what I am, naturally, how I came in this world, this person that I have struggled my whole life to love and accept. It's become a parody. For real, Dylan Mulvaney, I'm sorry. And that is an individual who I would lay some money on some really tragic outcomes later in life. That's a prediction. It's not a threat or a wish at all on this individual who ultimately, just like everybody, my heart breaks for. Lifestyle marketing has taught us to do nothing but judge ourselves in order to profit from us. And it's been so very obvious. But we, like children, being lured with toys and candy, now have diets and feel these things are necessities because we've all been groomed into addicts. Money isn't the root of all evil. Mammon is. Mammon. Materialism. Our putting our physical existence above and beyond everything else. It's wrong. Apparently, I was told this straight out. It was selfish of me to make a decision based on my convictions, on my principles. And back to this whole, like, okay, we're going to shush all of this stuff and we're going to ignore all of the stuff about children who are actually being harmed. We don't want to hear about it. We're actually going to vilify people who speak out about it. We're going to tackle parents that go to school council meetings, school board meetings, who are objecting to the fact that their children are being sexually assaulted in schools and it's being covered up. Wasn't that a Catholic thing? Like, really think about the evils you are becoming, people. People think it's ridiculous to liken what's happening in my country to, say, early 20th century Germany, vilifying whole groups of people based on their belief systems and their ethical choices. Literally, like, honestly, like, our government has come straight out. It's not, and people literally in our culture feel this way. My concern's about MAID. Back to the days when I actually picketed abortion clinics, we were told that we were ridiculous about the slippery slope to euthanasia. Well, here we are. And in 5 years, 32,264 Canadians were put down. And we average 75,000 abortions a year in this country. And MAID now is being extended to infants, or at least they're discussing it, but I believe that's actually happening. We're living in the twilight zone. And all I can say is I am for life, not lifestyles. I'm sick of lifestyles. I am devastated by lifestyle. I chose to take ownership of the damage in me and revel in it instead. Some of the best stories from my life are appalling. Still kind of impressive and funny in ways, but just... And I have to live with I was that person. And I do. I'm not asking anybody to make that better. Why do I talk about this stuff, guys? Because I really hope that particularly younger people will see the end result and go, wait a second, maybe I should think about this. There's a place inside all of us where we really know what we are. And all of the guesswork and all of the opinions of other people that started from, based on my sexuality, started pretty young, I gotta tell you. I think I became a slut, basically, because people saw me that way. People saw a body and an attitude and a conditioning. And I really believed that it was the only thing I had to offer anybody. And we're making this the emphasis that we're raising children on. We need to put it back in our pants. We need to have some respect for what that act actually is again. Recreation, enjoying sex is one thing. Forgetting what it is another. All of this was really sparked by a couple of days ago. I came across this whole criticism of trad moms. And I know that in the days where, people were arguing the acceptance of lesbians and gays, it's like, well, the traditional values, and that's always going to be there. No, it's being erased right now. And yes, the fact that nobody will honestly say that a woman is a biological female offends me. It offends me. It's offensive and it's nonsensical. And that's not judgment. We've all been really gaslighted in the name of profit. Mammon. Said it in my last video. I've said it in a few. I do not understand how anybody ever thought we were going to build a coherent society based on competition and greed. I am because we are. I hope people recognize that in a lot of my criticisms, there are very few areas where I don't say we. Car culture is one of them because I never bought into it. I do not hate cars. They are wonderful tools and we're a bunch of gluttonous addicts, at least in my city. My understanding is very much North America. And it's only started becoming a problem in Europe and in areas, yes, they are fighting back from it. My understanding is you go to Europe and it's a very different experience in terms of transportation. I have a lot of theories on these things based on observation and the education I've had, both formal and independent research. I obviously don't think very much of myself. However, I know that I had some gifts bestowed on me, and one of them is a brain that I use. Because that's what the Enlightenment was about, right? I take a look at things. I observe behaviors. I observe actual experiences, the results, the empirical results of this and this happens over and over and over and over again. That's the way the scientific method works, right? They're not all just coincidences. I have an ability to connect dots that a lot of people have been distracted from. We see individual trees, not the forest. And it's really very simple. And it's not easy. We have to stop trying to fix everything and start learning how to really truly accept realities. Like we've been gluttons and we gotta tighten our belts. And there's nothing wrong with feeling good. But none of us feel good all of the time and pretending really, and not allowing ourselves to actually feel the discomforts that we need to feel to grow. And just because we don't know doesn't mean that the risk isn't there. One of my favorite self-generated lines, I do believe this is original. An ostrich with its head in the sand also has its ass in the air. And our butts, man, they're going to be kicked all over the place if we don't get our heads out of the sand and start actually dealing with realities. This whole save the planet thing, said it in my last, believe it was my last video. We don't need to save the planet. We need to stop screwing with it and let it heal us. We need to reconnect with the natural environment that we are actually a part of and stop combating it and stop trying to screw with it and make it better, because we don't. We know this. We just don't want to believe it. We have to get over ourselves and really honestly start being the creatures that we actually are in the context that we're actually in, that we are something, part of something greater than ourselves. You can decide on any name for God. I like good orderly direction. I got that from Julia Cameron's Artist's Way as a representation of God. We need to see everything as these individual beings. Look that one up. There's a reason why it's in my poem. And read the whole thing. The entire verse, not just the first half. Do not stop at the semicolon. Keep going. I believe everybody has a right to truly be who they are. And what we are doing today is the exact opposite of allowing people to truly discover who they are. Left academics and I went and got myself a tool, but decided not to go back into academics because it's corrupted. When any one ideological system takes over, we're in trouble. I won't say I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson, but what has happened to him is textbook tyranny. And yeah, they prey on youth. Because that period of time from 0 to 25, while our brains are continuing to develop, we are very vulnerable. The younger they are, the more vulnerable to ideological conditioning Mine was very contradictory. Like, I've literally spent my whole life gaslighting myself. Telling myself. Because it's what everybody else says, so I must be. And it was really a lot of mean kids telling me I was fat and ugly and stupid. And teasing me for being the dollar store toy everybody played with. I was raised as a sex object, and that's what we're doing to children by putting the emphasis on this. We're raising them as sex objects. We're encouraging them to engage in addictive, unhealthy behaviors. And we're giving them absolutely no respect whatsoever for the actual fundamental primary purpose of the stuff that we just play with. Same thing with cars. Cars are wonderful, useful tools that have improved our lives to no end. And people drive around in the city like junkies. Refuse to put their foot on the brake and stop their car and make sure that they're not moving towards my body as I'm trying to cross the street, because they're in a hurry and they can't be bothered to respect my life. Most of the pedestrian fatalities are idiots that, didn't have their frickin' foot on the brake waiting to make the right-hand turn, mowing people fucking down because they're in a hurry. They're not looking. I've watched it. I've had it almost happen to me so many times. One guy was so close that my reaction to it actually damaged his car. I'm a mobility challenged woman with a cane. And apparently, as he drove past me through my pedestrian signal, by the way, that's my traffic light. He was running a red light, literally, completely breaking the law. My reaction when I threw my hands up and my cane came down and hit his car, that's how close he was to me. I actually hit his car with my cane. No respect for life at all anymore, guys. We've lost it. And someday it will touch your life. And until then, you can just, no. It's not important. That's just an isolated incident. I'll tell you, I wasn't an isolated incident. And we all know it. All of those kids that look at the Catholic Church. Look at what's happening right now. Please. For the sake of the children. For our future. For your future. I started asking 15 years ago if anybody gave a crap about the survival of the species anymore. If of humanity anymore. You can look back Facebook posts. At least 15 years. We really gotta get it together and start realizing that just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. And start thinking about why you're offended. And start thinking about the things that you're offended at. And start thinking about some of the people, the ways you're talking about the people that you think are offending you or think are trying to. And put yourselves in their shoes. Maybe listen to what their actual intent is. Grown-ups can do whatever they want. Behind closed doors. Children need to be protected. Nobody did that for me. Everybody pushed it aside, ignored it. Had to keep up appearances. It shaped who I was. It shaped the way the world saw me. It shaped the way I saw me. I'm just an isolated incident. Am I just an isolated incident? Heard another story about, and this is teetering on really dangerous ground, but do I think that gay couples should be able to adopt if two people actually love children? But because of all of this gross acceptance of deviant sexual behaviors, I'm not saying that being gay is deviant. I'm talking about the acceptance of deviant sexual behaviors. There is a website source from Toronto. Oh my God. Agencies called Teen Health Source, where you can find explicit information on anal sex and fisting and humiliation and bondage. It's called Teen Health Source. This is not healthy. Oh, well, kids do not have the ability to make the judgment calls when they're dealing with those kinds of temptations. When they find themselves in situations that they can take advantage of, they do. And when grown-ups realize that they screwed up and they're embarrassed and they don't want to admit it and they hide it, those children become irreparably damaged. Hello, my name is Dorothy. And I don't want anyone to be groomed into what I have to live with for the rest of my life. And I don't want other children who do things when they have no ability to make the judgment call to have to live with themselves for the rest of their lives knowing that they created something like me. We are creating perpetrators and victims right now. And we have to stop it. We have to be grown-ups about it. We have to accept that we are causing more harm than good right now. Please. Kick the crap out of me. Hate me. Stop creating me. Please. With that, I'm going to thank you for listening.
We need to start talking about our souls again. Narrative bullshit. It's propaganda.